Lahiff from GARLAND, and over to you, Brian. Thank you.
Hi everyone, and thanks Ken. I have a similar type of theme to Pat, so thanks Pat for that very thought-provoking presentation. I think I'll have a lot of opinions, a lot of questions, and maybe some answers, so I'm happy to have a chat with everyone afterwards on their opinions as well. So for me, it's about working smarter. How can we use our technology and our tools to work smarter, work better, work more efficiently? And I'm going to try to share with you some examples, some of my opinions, and some of the thoughts that we've been going through in our practice, and what we've been learning, and what we have still to learn, and what we're still trying to do. So I'm a chartered engineer. I'm coming at this from a civil and structural perspective. And I think we're all been told the whole time, BIM, digital is going to reduce our waste. And I think we all think about the skips on the construction site. And for me, we're not spending enough focus on the waste that happens in design practices, the inefficiencies and the rework, as Bam had mentioned earlier on. And for me, it's trying to eliminate that inefficiency and that rework, and to make sure that, we said it earlier on with the quantity surveyors, that the people are spending the right time, the time they have on the right thing for the right objective for the project and the goal of the project. And for me, it's just about focusing on the waste that's in a practice and the way we work, rather than just the construction waste and the reduction of skips and carbon. I think we all know that design is a very small part of the overall construction project, which is a very overall small part to the operation. I think the point I'd like to make is that if we invest in design, we can reduce that construction cost and reduce that operation. But that investment needs to be for the right thing and for the right reason. We all know we need to make better decisions earlier on in projects. And the only way we're going to do that is by making better design decisions earlier on in the project, and having the ability and the resources, the infrastructure and the tools to be able to get the right data at the right time, to make the right decision for the betterment of the project, to reduce the construction cost, reduction waste, to reduce construction operation, to reduce the carbon output of our projects. And it's about maybe changing our fee structures and our cash flowing to make sure that we're spending the right time at the right point in projects so we can get the right decisions made. For where we've seen this work best on projects is when there's been standards. We've agreed to the standards, and we've all worked and cooperated and communicated together. We've come together as a team, and the team has delivered project outcomes. And the reverse is true. Where this generally fails is when there's been a fall down in a standard, or a fall down in communication and cooperation. And for me, it's about trying to get the construction industry and the operation industry and all of us together to foster a better environment and an agreed way that we can get this stuff done. As Pat has outlined, maybe there is way more efficient ways to deliver these projects. A term I really like in the ISO 19650 suite of documents is the level of information need. And for me, it really focuses the question of, why are we doing this? What's our purpose? Why are we doing this project? It's not a BIM question, it's not a technology question, it's what do we need to get from this project? And what can digital, and what can BIM, and what can all our lean processes, what can we do, and what do we need to do to meet that need? Information being a big part of it. What do I need? What does the client need at the end of this project? And if we answer that project, we start from the end and we work back and we figure out, as a team of designers and construction professionals, what we need to deliver the client during and after the project. So a real lot of time for me spent answering this question earlier on the project will reap huge benefits to the project and its outcomes. I think what I've learned over the last number of years in particular is that there isn't one thing that we can do that will make this better. For me, the answer is in finding all the tools we all use for our own benefit and trying to connect them. And it's with those connections and with those interoperabilities that will make things better for all of us, so that we are working smarter and we are working leaner. We've learned an awful lot of lessons. We've made an awful lot of mistakes. We try our best to learn from them. And I maybe just show you a couple of examples of how we think we've tried to make things better in our practice and how we still haven't succeeded. This is one of our first BIM projects. It's over 10 years old now at this stage, which is hard to believe. It was a design build contract, and I think that really helped foster the communication, cooperation, and agreement to standards that we needed to deliver our first project. It was design build. We were working for BAM, and BAM said to us, we wanted to do this in BIM. There was no client requirement and no client need. We want to do this with BIM. And I think everyone went into the project and said, we don't know all these answers. And as a team, as a group of professionals, we're going to figure out these answers as we go, and we'll all learn from each other and help from each other. And it was that environment that I think helped us to learn a huge amount that we still bring to fore on some of our current projects. It really opened my eyes to how powerful a common data environment can be, and how powerful a naming convention can be. There's nothing better than going to a common data environment, knowing you need something and getting it straight away, at least with a couple of clicks. Nothing more frustrating than going to the common data environment. You can't find what you need, or the vision you've got isn't there, and you need to start going on the phone and going on the emails to find out what you need. A huge amount of value in having a proper common data environment working on a project. I think this project really reinforced that for us. Clash detection, clash avoidance, whatever you need. Again, 3D visualization 10 years ago, it really blew our mind for what was possible for the industry. And as Pat has shown us, what we can now deliver to our clients. You tell us your building, you tell us your bathroom, you tell us that, and we'll deliver it. I still haven't figured out how to put OPs in a structure and make them stick at the end of the job without having to move them, or someone else move them, or going back and figuring out. So if anyone has the answer for that, please come and talk to me. Still working on that one. And really what we instilled with this project and others is respecting the content. If we don't have the content right, things aren't going to work. We're not going to be able to connect things. So the small example here, if the laser works, for those structural engineers in the room, I changed it slightly for the structural engineers and call it respect the node. So we had a misalignment of the node. So the node wasn't where it was meant to be in the structural model, but it was in the physical model. And that started throwing up all sorts of errors. And when you have one of these, it's fine, but when your error log says just 500 errors, that's off-putting immediately, and someone goes, it doesn't work. The technology's not working for me. I'm going back to the way I used to do it. So respecting the content. And I'll touch on it earlier on. I think there's been a theme over the past morning already, and in some of the sessions I was able to witness over the last 2 days, in trying to keep it simple. And the simpler we make things, the more efficient it's becoming for ourselves. Trying not to overcomplicate it, and trying to model and manufacture, build in the most efficient and simple way as possible has to be our future. I think maybe we've gone through a peak and a trough. I think the theme I'm trying to pick up is, simple is best at the moment, because we tried to overcomplicate it because we have the technology to do it. But actually we need to think, and I have another example earlier on, what are we actually trying to do? Just like what's the level of information we need? What's the outcome we need? And how can we make the technology give us that answer or that outcome? I suppose that was one of our first structural projects. This was one of our first kind of civil projects where we tried to implement technologies. It's an economic free zone in Saudi Arabia. Like most projects in Saudi, it hasn't actually got built. They've thrown out everything and they're re-going at it again. So I'm delighted to be working on it again. That kind of rework we like, because we get the fee twice. What we were dealing with, it's a 320 hectare site. So although it looks simple, there was an awful lot of data and a huge amount of information. And we really learned really quickly on that our current processes and our original processes for trying to manage that size of a site and that sort of information was just impossible, and we couldn't do it. We needed to figure out a way that we could work with and change our processes so that the information was workable and usable. So we had to come up with our own internal naming system. Again, we learned a lot from the previous project from the structural sides, trying to break down our work and trying to use things so we weren't loading 500 megabyte models or drawings. We were loading 3 or 4 megabyte drawings, and there's lots of links going on. We tried to make it as efficient as we could and that people could work independently of each other. So we learned an awful lot from the Civil 3D side on trying to make that project efficient for ourselves. But then the client came along and told us, oh yeah, it's all fine, but we can't accept that file the way you have it with all those data shortcuts, with all those XREFs. We want one AutoCAD drawing with everything blocked in and built into it. We spent an awful lot of time with the client trying to convince them of how they could work with our stuff and the way we'd set it up would work, and they could accept our model and how it would all work, and there's object enablers. We didn't win the battle. So what happened in reality was we had a data dump every Friday. We were actually working on the design of the project Monday and Tuesday. And we spent Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday getting the delivery ready for the client. So for me, that's a huge amount of waste. We were wasting the time that we should be spending on getting a better design, optimizing our design, on getting a deliverable ready. So eventually we said, right, there has to be a better way. And my friend pops into my head every time I think of it, or I see someone in the office doing something a bit mad or a bit crazy. There has to be a better way. Usually there is, sometimes there isn't, usually there is. We ended up coming up with a program and a script that we could get the deliverable prepared by the computer on a Thursday night, and we walk in on Friday morning and we'd have our deliverables all set up exactly the way the client wanted. It took a lot of effort to get it working, but once it was working, it was fine. The Friday mornings where we got the error where on drawing 2 out of 1,000, we got an error and it didn't work. We had a few panicked Fridays, but we eventually got there. But again, the one thing I'd like to think about is that we're always trying to think about there has to be a better way. A good idea of trying to make it simple or overcomplicating something is we had a big cut and fill model to deliver for this client. The client wanted to know how much cut and fill was going out of this project, what they needed to do, and they wanted us to instruct the contractor to put this cut and fill in and do the job. And we had so many different models going on, and I know it's probably hard to see on the screen, with so many different surfaces, many 3D different models, everything was not hitting what it should hit. And we were seeing all these errors all around the site where things got overcomplicated and we're going to the wrong things and targeting the wrong things. And the only way we could solve it was to take a step back and again ask, what's the level of information need? What do we need to deliver? And how was the contractor going to do this? He was going to go in there with a digger, go from point A to point B, and just drive in a level and level it all out. So let's model it that way. And we simplified the model. And when we simplified the model, everything worked better. And we got an answer that we could trust, and we knew there wasn't errors, and that was essential for delivering for the type of client that we had. Another type of example or discussion or topic I hear in the office all the time is, I need a better computer. My graphics card isn't good enough. My processor isn't good enough. So we were opening up these models in Civil 3D, and again, it's a 320 hectare site, so it's a big area on an AutoCAD drawing. And they were loading all the XRFs, loading all the data shortcuts. And it was taking 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes for the drawing to open for someone. And my computer's broken, my computer's not working. So eventually we said, right, put the pause button. After a few weeks of listening to this, hit the pause button. What's going on? What is it loading? And eventually we got to the bottom of it, that we had this bloated XREF is what I call it. Our background that we were working had actually 15 backgrounds on top of each other. They had dummy lines, loads of blocks that were loading that were not necessary. We spent a lot of time just cleaning up our background, which in hindsight sounds really simple, but when you're in the middle in the throes of it, it can really annoy you. Cleaned it up. Instead of loading for 15 minutes, it was loading for 3 minutes. And the file size went from 100 megabytes down to 5. And you got to remember, every Friday we're giving this thing to the client 1,000 times because he wants an individual file and all XRF in. We were giving this client that file, and our CD was just exploding. And then overnight, our CD just disappeared in file size because we brought down the size of this file. But again, just the waste of the data storage, the waste of the minutes of loading, they're the things we just need to work on. And it does take us, anyway, at least, to hang on here. There has to be a better way. There's something wrong. Let's go and find it and fix it. And the other thing to remember as well is, as a practice, we deliver big projects in history over time. We've done it consistently. Shannon Industrial Estate was a 500-hectare development, 50 kilometres of road. We did it manually with drawing by hand on drawing boards. Thankfully, I wasn't there for that one. But the way we were able to do it was because we kept it simple. We had some simple rules. There was areas of, this is where the sewer are going on the road, this is where the trucks are going on the road, this is going on the footpath. We didn't need to clash detect. And again, there are things that we learned in our bonded zone project where we said, right, if we do this and we keep these simple rules, we only need to clash detect these 4 or 5 things. We don't need to model a 320 hectare site. We just model in 3D these 5 areas, because if there is going to be a clash, this is where it's going to be. The same thing with Raheen, 180 hectares. So we were able to do this in the past, and we were able to deliver these projects in the past without technology. So I think the challenge for us is to figure out how we can use the technology to deliver them even more efficiently and not complicated and not overcomplicated. So what's my message? There's always a better way, usually. And I always think of my friend on the typewriter. Keeping it simple, stupid is a motto I have throughout our office and our organization. If we're not keeping it simple, we're losing. And don't abandon pre-BIM techniques. If something worked in the past, it's going to work again. And for me, it's how do we build on those pre-BIM techniques and use the technologies that we have now available to deliver the projects with even better optimization and better information. We've tried to apply these projects on our ongoing projects. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't. One project on the screen, and I won't name it because I might get in trouble. We were being screamed at for RC schedules, reinforced concrete bar bending schedules for the building. Screamed at and screamed at and screamed at. We need them, we need them, we need them. And then 3 weeks later, the person who was requesting it turned around and said, no, actually, we're going to prefabricate all the reinforcement, and this fellow over here is going to prefabricate it all and do it in the office, and they want this, this, and this instead. They're throwing out your schedules. So we spent 5 weeks delivering these RC schedules, and they were being dumped in the bin. And not only that, we had to change the way we did it to give it in another manner for someone else to do their methodology. That, to me, is as much waste as the bricks in the skip. And I think that's where we need to try and focus on as well. And again, the learnings we had from the bonded zone, we were able to bring to a project in Azerbaijan. Did we make mistakes? Did we learn lessons? We're still learning them. We're still making them. But I think we're trying to get there. And from that, we were actually asked to write a roadmap for the implementation of BIM in Azerbaijan. I can't leave it on the screen too long because they haven't published it yet. So hopefully we get there very soon, because we're going to need to rework that with the dates if they don't get onto it quick enough. And I think getting back to the theme of connecting things. So we're trying to look at internally, how do we set ourselves up internally? Because we're going to be faced with challenges. There's one job where we were asked to design a feature stairs for a fit-out project. I spent more time on that project dealing with 2 different CDEs and a 3rd inspection plan, and training for those, uploading for those, re-revisioning for those, than I did actually designing the steel for the feature stairs. Again, I think maybe we've lost sight of what the purpose of what we're trying to do is, and that's really important, I think. I think it's been touched on already. I think Pat has kind of hinted on, the AI and what our future is, and I think that's, we've got to make this thing and set this thing up that, it's going to help us and going to make us more efficient and make us work better. I was doing a presentation for the ACI one day, and this was on the lift on the way up to it. Automation does not need to be our enemy. I think machines can make life easier for men and women, if men and women do not let machines dominate them. The AI isn't going to do it for us. We're going to have to get this stuff prepped and be working and be ready for the AI to be able to kick in and help us deliver our jobs, to avoid rework and to avoid loss and waste of time. Thanks.